Okay, ready? Redwall, chapter 9. There's not much to see on these pictures in this book. Oh, there you go. Okay, chapter 9. It was the afternoon of the following day. Matthias marched into the farmyard at the head of all of the guerrilla union of shrews in the Mossflower. He halted the entire regiment outside the barn and turned to Log-a-Log. Wait here, my friend. There's someone I have to see. The young mouse stood in the gloom of the barn, knowing he was being watched. Without turning or looking around, he addressed the cat. Julian, it is Matthias. I have returned. The marmalade cat loomed up out of the half-light. So I see. Welcome, little friend. Is that the sword that you told me of? Matthias proffered the blade for inspection. It is indeed. Asmodeus the snake lies dead. I slew him with this very weapon. It is the great sword of Martin the warrior. Squire Julian Gingervere handled the sword with care. He laid it on a hay bale. Sitting next to it, he folded his paws under him and half shut his eyes. Matthias, let me give you some good advice. I am much older than you, and I have seen far more of life. There are not many illusions left to me, and I do not want to shatter your dreams or blight your ambitions, my friend, but I must say what I have to. We squires of Gingervere are an ancient line. In the past, I have seen many such tokens as this weapon. My grandsires owned a vast armory full of magnificent and valued battle equipment. No doubt your sword is indeed a beautiful thing. It is a tribute to whoever forged it in bygone ages. There are very few such swords as this one left in the world, but remember, it is only a sword, Matthias. It contains no secret spell, nor holds within its blade any magical power. This sword is made for only one purpose, to kill. It will only be as good or evil as the one who wields it. I know that you intend to use it only for the good of your abbey, Matthias. Do so, but never allow yourself to be tempted into using it in a careless or idle way. It would inevitably cost you your life or that of your dear ones. Martin the warrior used the sword only for the right and good. This is why it has become a symbol of power to Redwall. Knowledge is gained through wisdom, my friend. Use the sword wisely. Matthias picked up his weapon. He was surprised at Julian's words. They were an echo of something that his old companion Methuselah had once said to him. Thank you, Julian, he said. I will remember your lesson well. Now, I must ask a favor of you. Would you come with me? I want you to be present when I speak to Captain Snow. The cat sniffed disdainfully. You ask quite a lot. I wouldn't do this for anyone else, you know. Reluctantly, Julian stalked out into the sunlight with Matthias. There was an immediate spate of loud, frightened chatter from the regiment of guerrilla shrews. Squire Julian Gingervere merely nodded and addressed them in a regal but distant manner. Good afternoon. Very clement weather for this time of year, don't you think? For the first time since the formation of their union, the shrews stood in slack-jawed silence, completely lost for an answer. As they strolled along, Julian protested to his companion. Really, Matthias, I think you are asking a bit much of one. Does one have to stand around listening to that befeathered regimental bore giving air to his hidebound militaristic views? Oh, it's just too much. Matthias stroked the silky cat's forepaw. Come on, Julian. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. The marmalade cat stifled a yawn. You don't say. Has another tree fallen upon the pompous old fool? Captain Snow paced around the base of his nest tree. He glared at the cat, then at the mouse holding the sword. He snorted, hunching his neck into ruffles and folding his wings behind him. Listen, Mouse, I don't want to hear how you did it. Probably wouldn't believe you anyhow, but here you are, and I suppose that's that. Matthias hid a smile. He tapped his foot in mock impatience. I'm waiting, Captain Snow, sir. Remember your promises on oath. The owl's eyes bulged with ill temper. He flung Basil's medal at the young mouse's feet. There, take your medal back, you insolent little pup. I'm not saying another word while that salad-eating cat is within hearing range. Matthias traced patterns in the dust with the sword point and spoke civilly to the owl. Well, Captain Snow, sir, I never took you for a bad sport. Besides, I've got an entire regiment of shrews hidden all about. They're waiting to hear you honor your wager. The owl spread his wide, snowy wings and flapped upwards to perch on the edge of his den. Folding the wings and shutting his eyes tightly, he shouted out with bad grace, I promise never to kill or eat another mouse or shrew of any type so long as I live, so there! He hooted and vanished swiftly into his den. Instantly, the shrews broke cover, dancing and whooping with delight. Captain Snow popped his head out of the nest. Go away! Be gone! I can't stand it. All those little dinners dancing around. It's too much, I tell you. Excuse my mentioning it, sir, Matthias shouted over the hubbub. But what about your promise regarding our friend the squire? The owl emerged grumpy and ruffled. Thoroughly humiliated, he called out to his former friend the cat. It was all my fault. I apologize to you, Sir Julian. He was completely taken back by the cat's reply. Not at all, my dear friend. It is I that must apologize to you. The whole incident was entirely due to my priggishness and lack of manners. Captain Snow swooped down and perched near the cat. Do you really think so? Oh, come on, Julian, old cap. I must share the blame. It was my barrack room feeding habits that started the whole thing. You mustn't blame yourself, old friend. A rare smile covered the features of the normally laconic Julian. He purred comfortingly. No, no. I insist that we share the blame 50-50. Besides, the question won't arise now that you've sworn off shrews and mice. I say, have you ever tried a fresh trout salad with mustard and cress? Why don't you come over to the barn? I'm sure there'll be enough for two. I mean, trout's not exactly a vegetable, is it? Wing and paw, the reunited comrades strolled off to the barn, chatting amiably as if there had never been a cross word between them. Julian was the last to enter the barn. He gave Matthias a broad wink. Who knows, my friend? Maybe the sword does possess some magic. Personally, I think it's the warrior who wields it. For the first time in many days, Matthias laughed heartily. He felt so good within himself. After all the action and mental strain, travel and grief, he felt suddenly reborn, larger than life and brimming with new-found self-confidence. Certainly there were great difficulties and hard tasks ahead of him. When the time came, he would handle them. For the present, he was satisfied with this feeling of immense happiness. Excuse me. Holding the sword lightly, he balanced its point against the earth and laughed freely. It was infectious. Log-a-log joined in, then one guerrilla shrew, then another, and still yet more, until the whole regiment and their warrior mouse friend set the countryside ringing from river to woods, in farm and field, with the happy sounds of their honest joy. Okay, let's see now what we got here. Chapter 10. Oh, I think we can do this. Okay. Chapter 10. The Cluny that emerged from the ragged tent in the meadow was far from the one sick in the head. The members of the horde watched the way he strode purposely about. The old glint was back in his single eye. His orders were crisp and concise. Even the long tail had a fresh crack about it. The chief seemed sharper now than he had been before. In the aftermath of the tunnel disaster, Cluny had called off the attack for a full day, withdrawing all his followers well back across the meadow. The warlord gave his horde time to recuperate from the fiasco. A whole day's leisure, with no recrimination and hardly any orders. The captains of Redwall wasted no time in making use of the temporary respite. Repairs were started upon the gatehouse door. Teams of the woodland carpenters, abbey smiths, and laborers, plus any creatures that felt the need to help, were lowered down to the road in large wickerwork baskets. Should the enemy in the meadow decide to make any sudden move, the workmen could be speedily hauled back up to the ramparts. All that day the rope gangs were kept busy sending down wood, spikes, cordage, tools, and repair materials. Clooney sat and watched them from the distance as he talked aloud to himself. Good work, mice. Strengthen my gates. I wouldn't want to rule a fortress with broken doors. Fangburn was passing. He overheard Clooney conversing with himself. Not sure whether the remarks were addressed to him, he stopped. You feeling all right, Chief? Never better, Clooney replied. He pointed at the repair crews. See that, Fangburn? Honest, industrious work. And what for, eh? Fangburn hazarded a guess. To keep us out, Chief? No, to stop us from getting in, Clooney chuckled. Get some soldiers and light a fire down in the ditch. Make it a proper blaze, good and hot. Fangburn knew better than to question the reason for his chief's order, no matter how strange it sounded. A big fire? Right you are, Chief. I'll get them going right away. Fangburn hurried off, aware that Clooney was watching him. Shortly after, there was a huge fire burning in the ditch. The horde gathered close by to see what Clooney was up to. The crackling flames gave off waves of heat, causing everyone to step back. Above the ditch, the air shimmered and danced. Clooney stood in the ditch, claws on hips. He cracked his tail. Scumnose, mange fur, bring up those dormice prisoners. The 20 dormice were dragged forward in a pitiable condition. They cowered on the ground in front of the warlord, half-starved and dull-eyed. Clooney pointed. You leader mouse. What's your name again? Plumpin, sir, the bedraggled mouse replied. Clooney grabbed Plumpin roughly, dragging him away from his fellow captives on the ground. What are these other miserable creatures to you, Plumpin? He snapped. The dormouse explained in a shaky voice. My family, sir. My mother, father, brothers, sisters, and my wife and 2 little ones. Oh, please, sir, spare them. I beg you. Clooney laughed cruelly. His eye was devoid of pity. He leaned close to Plumpin and whispered harshly, What would you do to save them? The dormouse watched Clooney's eye rove lazily from his family to the blazing inferno. Anything you say. What do you want of me? He screamed in his fear and anxiety. Clooney cracked his tail triumphantly, pulling Plumpet forward until their noses touched. The big rat's voice was as foul and evil as his breath. Listen carefully. You are going to open the abbey door for me, my friend. If you fail, your precious little family will pay the penalty. Now, here's what you must do. Constance hauled upon her rope. It was no hard task for a fully grown badger. On the other ropes there were creatures that could not compare with her for strength, but they hauled and pulled with equally good will. Cornflower and Silent Sam kept busy supplying cool drinks and sweat cloths. The repair work went ahead at a steady pace. No one noticed that there was an extra mouse laboring along the workers on the roadway. It was Plumpin. Clooney had supplied him with a habit taken from the body of one who had fallen slain from the ramparts. Plumpin had concealed himself in the ditch and traveled under cover until he was level with the gatehouse. At the appropriate moment, he slipped out with a plank upon his shoulder and joined the workforce. They toiled away industriously until Just Squirrel, who was acting as overseer, decided that the work was completed, as indeed it was. The old gatehouse door looked as good as new. All the tools and spare timber were gathered up and the roadway was swept. Satisfied with the job well done, the work crews stacked up their materials and were hauled up to the ramparts in the large grain baskets. Plumpin sat between Brother Alf and Brother Rufus. Across the meadow, he could see Clooney, watching, always watching. Plumpin cursed the fate that had put him and his family in the hands of the rats. What a happy, friendly lot the Redwall creatures were. He was served afternoon tea, sitting on the grass in the cloisters. The Dormouse felt the good food turn to ashes in his mouth at the thought of his betrayal of fellow mice. But there was no alternative if he wanted to save his family. After tea, he wandered off on the pretense of carrying out some fictitious task. When there was nobody about, he hid himself in the old gatehouse den, which had once been Methuselah's study. Locking the door, Plumpin lay down, lonely and miserable, to await nightfall. Inside Cavern Hole, the Father Abbot addressed a morale-boosting speech to his captains. Friends, it will avail Clooney little to put the abbey under state of siege. As you know, Redwall is virtually self-supporting. All we require to sustain life and comfort is here within these walls. Therefore, I suggest we carry on as normally as possible. However, the walls must always be guarded. I leave it to you, my captains. Stay ever vigilant against Clooney and his horde. I know that with your counsel and good judgment, we will soon see the day when the enemy is forced to go elsewhere and leave Redwall in peace. There was loud applause for the abbot's heartening words, but Constance was not convinced. She whispered her thoughts to Basil and Jess. Never. Clooney won't leave us alone till either we are dead or he is. Basil Staghair nodded in agreement. I know, old scout, but the abbot's such a decent old buffer that he believes there's good in everyone, even Clooney. What? And so do I, Jess muttered. I believe Clooney will be a good someday. Good and dead. Gradually, the day grew to a close. Lights dimmed as Redwall prepared for a well-deserved night's rest. The meadowland and woods grew quiet and peaceful. On top of the walls, sentries leaned across the parapet, listening to the evening bird songs. Across the meadows, the enemy campfires burned low into the soft June night. Plumpin waited another hour as Clooney had instructed. Then it was time to make his move. Stealing quietly out of the gatehouse study, the Dormouse headed north, staying well within the deep shadow of the wall. At the small north wall gate, Plumpin drew a scarlet cloth from his habit. Smearing the bolts with grease from the cloth, he silently worked them loose. Kilconey lay watching the gate from behind a sycamore in the woods. Near to every other entrance, one of Clooney's most trusted soldiers was concealed, awaiting the signal. It was the ferret who was rewarded by the sight of the scarlet cloth being shoved through the door jamb. He hurried away to tell Clooney. It was dead of night when Clooney's horde moved out of the meadow. Around the embers of each campfire, bundles of grass and twigs had been wrapped in blankets. To the unsuspecting sentries on the wall, the bundles looked like sleeping forms. They sensed nothing amiss. The horde circled northwards through the meadowlands until Clooney judged that they were far enough from Redwall to escape detection. He crossed the road at the head of his army. They filtered back through the leafy cover of nighttime mossflower towards the abbey. Now that his goal was in sight, Clooney used all the stealth of a stalking hunter, waiting until the entire horde was in position. Each soldier, crouching quietly among the ferns and bushes, knew the penalty for making any sound that would betray their presence. Not death from the defenders, but death at the claws of their own chieftain. Clooney could wait. He gave it another half hour until he could actually see some of the guards on top of the wall nodding off at their posts. What was 30 minutes after he had waited so long for this moment? With practiced skill, he slid from his hiding place and crossed to the wall door. One gentle push, and the small iron door swung slowly open on its greased hinges. Clooney stood in the doorway with the soldiers filed past him on their way to the Abbey building. There was little need to worry about the wall guards. Those who were awake would be watching the road or the enemy camp, their backs turned to the secret invaders. Plumpin stood by, anxiously watching the warlord. At least his family would be safe now. The Dormouse had faithfully carried out his part in the dreadful scheme. Clooney must surely keep his word. He did not see the look that passed between Clooney and Fangburn. Fangburn swung the heavy club and brought it crashing down on the back of Plumpin's head from behind. The unlucky Dormouse crumpled to the ground without a word. Clooney, the scourge, bared his fangs, grinning wickedly into the dark. He had finally brought his horde into Redwall. Okay, one more chapter. I think we can do this. It's quick. Chapter 11. The last rays of the sinking sun streamed through the open barn doorway, lighting up formerly darkened corners. Matthias lay on the hay amidst the remnants of an epic celebration feast. The guerrilla union of shrews and mossflower had really outdone themselves laying out this spread. He picked up a truffle and tossed it away with a sigh of satisfaction, fearing he might burst if he forced another bite into his mouth. On one side of the young mouse, the gifts from Squire Julian Gingervere, Captain Snow, and the shrews were piled high. On the other was his sword, reflecting the rays of the afternoon sun. The guerrilla shrew regiment had chosen to sleep off the effects of the party outside in the sun. They lay about the farmyard, too full even to argue. Log-a-Log shuffled lazily in and flopped down beside his mouse friend. "Greetings, O mighty warrior," he giggled, "savior of the shrews, slayer of poison teeth, he who speaks with cats, friend maker of owls, and a uniter of—" "Oh, shut up, you noisy little devil," Matthias chuckled as he kicked Log-a-Log off the hay into the dust. "Do you know much about birds?" Log-a-Log said. "What about sparrows?" Matthias yawned. "Well, what about sparrows? I've had some dealings with them. What do you need to know?" "Nothing really," the shrew murmured sleepily. "But there's been one reported over at the edge of the woods. Of course, no one can understand a single word that the savage heathen is saying. She's screeching away back there, hopping and dancing about, working herself up into a right old tizzy, or so I've been told." Matthias sprang up, grabbing his sword. "Come on, Log-a-Log. I speak the sparrow language. We'd best get over there and find out what's upsetting her." With a score of guerrilla shrews on their wake, the two companions set off for Mossflower on the double. Above the long grass in front of the woods, the sparrow warrior could be seen. She fluttered up and down, creating a raucous din. Log-a-Log and the shrews were taken aback when Matthias ran ahead of them, shouting at the "Warby, you old warrior!" The two friends reunited. They rolled about in the grass like a pair of mad creatures, patting each other on the back. "Matthias Mouse, some old worm friend, biggy fat brave now. How are you?" The shrews were completely baffled. They sat about scratching their heads at the strange behavior of the sparrow and the mouse. Matthias chattered to Warbeak in the rapid sparrow tongue, telling her of all that happened since they last parted. Warbeak, for her part, told Matthias of her fortunes to date. Upon the death of King Bull Sparrow, Warbeak had been crowned queen. Dunweg, her mother, had wished it to be so. The tribe were happy under the wise rule of their youngest ever queen. No more would sparrows have to live under the claw of an unpredictable maniac. After Warbeak had related her story, she became grave. "Matthias, Redwall have big trouble. We watch, see from roof. Ratworm make lot of plans. Mice brave warriors all the time fight back. Beat 'em ratworms plenty. But Warbeak watchin' Ratworm King. He am bad worse than King Bull. Him make bad plan. Catch 'em Abbey. Ratworms soon be inside Redwall. Matthias Mouse, come quick. Bring 'em sword." An icy claw of fear gripped Matthias's stomach. He sat down hard in the grass. Log-a-Log shook his friend. What's she saying, Matthias? You look as if you've seen the ghost of Poison Teeth. For goodness sake, what's going on? It's my home, Redwall, Matthias said in a hollow voice. Clooney the Scourge is about to capture it. Logolog spoke urgently to the shrews. Quick! Get the regiment ready as fast as you can. We're off to the Abbey at Redwall. Tell them to catch us up. I want no argument or votes. Tell every shrew to be fully armed. We must march tonight and day if we are to save Matthias's friends. Matthias picked up the sword of Martin. By thunder, Logolog, you're right. I fought hard for the sword in order to save Redwall. Come on! Shrewmouse helpum you. How many warriors him got? Warbeak chimed. A full complement, Logolog answered. About 500 shrews. Warbeak spread her wings. I bring all a tribe sparrow warrior. We come help. Matthias shook Warbeak's claw warmly. Thank you, Queen Warbeak, my friend. Now we must go. A strategy can be worked out on the way to the Abbey. Let's hurry. There's no time to lose. It's do or die now. The mouse, the shrew, and the sparrow plunged off into the green wooded world of Mossflower together. One thing Matthias was certain of as he strode swiftly through the trees. It would be he and he alone who faced Clooney the Scourge at the bitter end. So, until next time.